Hi, everybody. My name is Kristy Robinett, and I am super appreciative of Llewellyn for having me today and for having this whole con. I was just saying how amazing it is that so many people from all around the world can attend something like this, and the community that is all together is just really, really amazing. So I'm really grateful that I am part of this. So for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Kristy Robinett, and I have been an author with Llewellyn for 8 to 9 years, and I have written 7 books for them. My last book that I wrote came out last year, around this time actually, and it's called Born Under a Good Sign, and it is about astrology. So I'm going to do things a little bit different today because I'm a little bit different. We're all unique, right? So I am professionally a psychic medium. I don't like professing that I talk to dead people because I think that they're living way better than we're living. But I talk to those that have crossed over on the other side, and they emit energy to me, and that's how I communicate. That is how I see astrology. We're all made up of energy, and just like not every Libra is going to have the same day, not every person on the other side is having the same day. So when I wrote this book, the first thing I said was, I am not one of your amazing astrologers. I'm an energy astrologer. So I was raised in an incredibly religious household, Missouri Synod Lutheran. I was taught that being able to see spirits or even reading your horoscope was demonic and terrible. And yet I could see spirits on the other side, and I loved reading my horoscope. So I could sneak it because for those of you, especially in the United States, the horoscopes were put right next to the comics. So my parents didn't know that I was reading, my daily horoscope. They thought I was reading, a Garfield comic strip instead. So when I got to college, one of my first classes was a psychology class. And I wrote one of my first papers on the personalities by astrological signs. And afterwards, my professor came up to me and said, "So you love astrology?" And I said, "I love astrology, but I'm not mathematical and I'm not scientific, and I really don't understand astrology." And she said, "I think you need to take a class." So I'm like, college has classes for that? Well, they didn't. She handed me a flyer of a class that was being held in a couple towns away, and it happened to be the very next day. So I drove, I was very shy. I still kind of am very shy, but I'm very shy. And I did this all on my own. I didn't tell anybody because I couldn't tell my parents because they'd probably be throwing holy water at me. Honestly, I'm Lutheran, so Catholics would have done that. My Lutherans would have just sent me to my minister. And I went to this class, and I walked into this class, and there was 12 seats. And with every seat, we had like a pillow that was a different color. And the teacher wasn't in yet. And I was the last person to show up, and I took my seat, and she walked in and she said, "I want you guys to talk about what astrological sign you are." And this is how amazing energy works. There was 12 students. Every single one of us represented each of our astrological signs. There was not 2 Scorpios. There was not 2 Cancers. There was not 3 Libras. There was one of every kind. And I knew that I belonged there. And so that began my study into the astrological field. Now, I'm still not mathematical, and I'm still not one to do the charts, and I'm still not one of those. There are amazing astrologers that are amazing at that. But that's not how I work. So I want to talk about the energy of astrology and go through kind of what the planets have been doing. And I want to talk about how wonderful, how good your astrological sign is, because that's why I named the book what I named it, because I believe that there is good in everybody. And even though you might have dated a really bad Sagittarius, and you might have really bad views of Sagittarians because of that, there is still good with everybody. So we have been in a really scary and uncertain time, right? The entire world has been. And it's really hard to see through those clouds and to believe that there is a rainbow at the end of the storm. We've had the ups and downs of the financial market. We've had restricted travel. We're in panic and anxiety mode. The frequency of the energy is challenging. But with everything, we have a positive. We have an ability to see that happy outcome, that rainbow at the end, because there always is a rainbow after the storm. So let's first go backwards and talk about December of 2019, when Jupiter entered Capricorn. And Jupiter is the planet of abundance. It's the planet of foreign affairs. It's the planet of travel. And this is a 13-month energy. So it came together with the astrological energy of Aquarius. And Jupiter and Saturn began a new cycle in a new element connected with that. So this is a once in a 200-year opportunity to make necessary adjustments and to begin the process, especially with the Aquarian energy of humanitarian focuses. The Aquarian is intelligent. They are the visionaries. They are the ones that don't necessarily abide by the law if it doesn't make sense, just to fit in. That's not what that energy speaks to. It bucks the system. So this was back in December, and this was setting the course for where we are right now and where we're going. So Aquarians will do away with rules. They will do away with restrictions, and they have a rebellious side. A lot of times people think Aquarians are pushovers. And they're not. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Aquarians wear their heart on their sleeves, for sure. But they're definitely not pushovers. So then we move to January 12th. January 12th is where we saw the Saturn-Pluto conjunction with the astrological sign of Capricorn. And Capricorn rules government. It rules the economy. And it's a little bit of a heavier dictatorship type of an energy. So this new cycle showed through communication on new forms, which goes into play with how we're doing virtual everything right now. It makes sense when you go into the back and you look at that. The air signs never like to lose their words. They always have new ideas. They are the people to talk to. There is warmth. There is, again, the humanitarianness associated with that. So then Venus and Mars went retrograde. And for those of you that don't know what retrograde means, it is like the opposite. So if it's good, if they are good with government and it's upside down, all of a sudden everything is upside down. And so we don't lose that, but we definitely get a new perception of what's going on with it. So I don't even see like Mercury in retrograde as bad. I see it as an opportunity to grow. It's also a great opportunity to blame everything on Mercury. So the Venus and Mars retrograde was May 13th through June 25th. And the Mars retrograde through Aries, it hits into the Aries energy, is September 9th through November 14th, which is really important because Mars is the planet of war. It is a fiery planet. It is, the energy is a little bit scary. And it means that by the time we get through that November timeframe of when it goes back direct, we are likely to see some very volatile situations occur. Not to put fear into it. It doesn't mean it's the apocalypse. It's just being forewarned and being prepared. So as Mars and Mercury is retrograde through that beginning of November, dealing with anger, separation, acts of aggression will be really, really important. Mars spends half the year in Aries, and that is where you get people who say, I don't want to wear masks in a pandemic come into frame. You get people who are saying you need to wear a mask in a pandemic. You get people who are saying, I'm an authority. You get other people that say, no, you're not. I'm the authority. And so you get a lot of conflict. Aries energies are the leaders, and they will kind of make stuff up, even if they don't, or even if they know that it's not true. They will create it so that you believe them. And so, we're in for some doozy. We knew we were going to be in for a doozy of a year, and we honestly haven't seen everything yet. So it's one that we really need to strap ourselves in and be prepared, not fearful of. So Jupiter conjuncts Pluto while in the astrological sign of Capricorn. And this is sort of a power surge that happens. This is like when you have a brownout in your electricity and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to blow my electricity out. And this is talking from a symbolic standpoint. It's useful to know that because this is in particularly connected to the pursuit of justice and equality. So it's not necessarily for personal gain. It is for changes and shifts coming forward. So we're getting this brownout and you're going, oh my gosh, I am going to lose my stove. The stove is probably 35 years old and it needs to be replaced anyway. It's old. And so as much as you're not happy with replacing that stove, it's something that needed to be done anyway. So it's outdated thoughts. It's outdated ideas. And right now was where we're going through that brownout phase. Those people, a lot of people are afraid of change. And so this astrological energy for 2020 speaks to everything about humanitarian change. And not everybody is going to be on the same side. And not everybody should be on the same side, honestly. You know, we should all be growing from ideas from everybody. And it shouldn't be so one-sided. It's not harmful for us to listen to one another. Now we're in Mercury Retrograde. And for those of you that don't know what Mercury retrograde occurs when the planet appears to travel backwards in the sky. The planet Mercury involves anything to do with communication. It involves anything to do with legal contracts. And it can be problematic for a lot of people because all of a sudden it goes on hiatus. It goes on vacation. It says, I am not going to help you. You guys are on your own. And this is a time for you to have renewal. This is a time for you to review. This is a time for you to slow down and be patient with yourself and with other people. And we are in such a fast-paced world that our psyches go, I don't want to do that. I want things now. And Mercury in retrograde says, whoa, wait a minute. I only offer this to you 3 times a year. I'm telling you, you're on fast pace all the time. And I need you to just take it down a notch, just a little bit. And so it's our own egos that fight this. Mercury is not bad for taking a vacation. Mercury is pretty much tired of having to deal with us all the time and doing our work. And it's saying you have to be responsible yourself. You have to double check contracts. You have to not just assume that what you're saying is what other people are going to hear. So you have to take a step back and you have to make sure that what you're saying is really what you mean. And so this is the time period that we're in right now. It's a slippery slope with everything else that's happening, though. So it's a little bit muddy and it feels like we're being dragged through the mud. And so right now there's important conversations that have to be had, but they have to really be careful with how you say them and how you respond to them. And we've got such an open forum now with social media that it's so easy to get caught up into that I misunderstood you phase. And I'll give you kind of a story. So I'm a professional medium. That's what I do. I have an office here in the Michigan area and I see clients and I have an amazing clientele. I built my practice a couple decades ago. And I've worked really hard at it, and I love what I do, and hopefully it shows. And so I had posted on social media something to do about law enforcement. And so one of the things that I do is I work with law enforcement on missing persons and murder cases, unsolved cold cases. I have for years. So I have seen the good cops, and I've seen the bad cops, and I've seen the cops that think I'm crazy, and I've seen the cops that have tested me, and I have seen the gambit of that. I have seen cases where people have been profiled and inappropriately arrested, even charged, even gone to jail. I've worked with the Innocence Project. I've worked with prosecutors. I've worked with defenders. I have worked in every part of that judicial system. So I had posted something about being really cautious, because we're in Mercury retrograde. We were in the pre-shadow at the time, that what you say is what you mean. Because if you say one bad person makes everybody a bad person, that's probably not what you mean. So I had a potential client who had booked a session for in the future get very mad at me. And he called me. And he said, I want a refund. I'm so mad at you. I don't like what you said. And I said, could we talk about this? Like, I will give you that refund. Absolutely. But I want to have a conversation. And he was very hesitant at having a conversation. But we talked for about an hour. And in that hour conversation, we both cried. I'm going to call him James. That's not his real name, but he did allow me to use this as examples. And so the tone of how I put out what I was saying was a different tone than what he was reading it. This is so classic Mercury in retrograde. You can read, well, have a good day as super sassy, or well, have a good day as super happy. And so when you're in a low vibrational plane of heightened emotion, we then absorb that lower vibration, and we read between the lines, and we read into the context of things that might not necessarily be the truth. So him and I had an amazing conversation, and I was able to reiterate what I meant in a different way, where he didn't see it in that negative context. And I was able to understand where he was coming from too. We are in this phase until July 12th, you guys. So we have just begun. And that's why I'm emphasizing this so much, because it is something we really, really need to be very cautious of. Now, this is in the family-oriented Cancer, which is such an amazing summer retrograde, because it's all about family. It's all about taking the time to enjoy your family, even if you're sick of them with regards to the pandemic. It's taking the time to communicate with family. It's healing from family issues from the past, whether they're on the other side or whether they're here. And that doesn't necessarily mean a blanket forgiveness. It simply means seeing what you're allowed, what you're able to handle, what you are with the choices that you have. So that's what that is in connection with. So I do see there's going to be more, systematic issues that's going to be presented between this. And what I do see is I do see a bright star at the end of it. So that is a good thing. There's some tough conversations that are going to be happening, that are still happening. And when we ignore those unresolved issues, they stay unresolved. And so Mercury in retrograde is saying, right now, we need to do these confrontations. It's just how you do the confrontations is what needs to be the cautiousness. So focusing on that Cancer energy is going to really be about supporting communities and aligning yourself with your friends, and aligning yourself with your relatives, and aligning yourself with the work that you want to do next. If you are hanging out with people with belief systems that are completely different than yours, and you feel uncomfortable about that, then maybe that's not the vibration that you should be with. And so it is definitely, taking things back into context. So the world is bracing for change into the second part of 2020. And it's a bit of a war between old and new. We continue this reform. We will be aligned with this new energy for about 30 years. It's a reconstruction structure. And just like I said, some people resist change. Others are excited to leap for it. So we're not all on the same path. And that's okay too. That is okay. Those wanting to start a new business right now, believe it or not, it's a great time to make investments, no matter what astrological. We are going to see amazing opportunities with technology. We are going to see amazing opportunities with medicine, amazing opportunities with pharmaceuticals. And especially between August and October, we're going to see huge global economic issues that kind of occur. So we're going to go really fast speed ahead until August, and then we're going to see another pause or even a reverse. So just to be forewarned. I know a lot of people are talking about a second spike of coronavirus. It could be that. It could just be an economic situation. But the stars and the moons and the planets sort of speak to that. In 2020, there's 6 eclipses. Eclipses are amazing for getting movement started. It spurs things up, just like that brownout that I said we're getting. It's that same sort of feeling. We're getting that. And Mars is in the fire sign of Aries in the summer months, which is a little bit of my forewarning because Aries is a fire sign and Mars is fiery. So that makes me concerned for more wildfires around the world, earthquakes, damaging winds, weather that's a little bit more spiky. Just feels a little bit threatening to me. Now I want to talk about you guys. I want to talk about what an amazing sign all of you are. And I'll do this as quickly as can be. So, Aries. Aries, you are the first in the line. You are the one that is actually sitting on the train and you are driving it and you are telling everybody what they're supposed to do. You are the leader. You are an amazing person because you are that leader. Now, not everybody's going to like that you're the leader, especially the caboose. Pisces not going to really like that you are the leader because they also want to be the leader. And they're like, I'm always coming in last. But Aries, you are the leader. 2020 coming forward asks for you to embody the mark of the wish that you want. What mark on this world do you want to make? In every way and every bit of attention to detail, because you're very detail oriented, they show that you will come into alignment and enlightenment to your goals. So what I love is that even though we have a lot of heavy energy right now, the Aries energy is saying, I'm going to force my way through this. I am going to not just sit by. I'm going to do something. I'm going to do something for my own life. I'm going to help my community out. I'm going to help my friends and family out. And that is what the rest of the year is going to end up being for you. And it's a very positive space. Taurus. Taurus has a bad reputation for being stubborn. But I see that stubbornness as bravery. So Tauruses do have a dreamy type of a side to them. And what they're asking for you, what the astrological forecast is asking for you is to help you complete your long-term goals, because it feels like the last couple of years you have felt like you are just kind of riding in the wave. So the end of the year, be very cautious with how you invest your money, your time, and your attention. However, right now you are supposed to be looking at long-term goals, and long-term isn't just until the end of the year. It is putting a spreadsheet together and doing a 3-year plan and a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan, and knowing that you're probably going to have to, adjust it as time goes by, but they don't want you to slack anymore. So they feel like there's been a little bit of that energy is making you a bit lazy feeling and saying, I am just trying to cope with day to day right now. And as much as that's a good thing, they still want you to make sure that you utilize your dreaming side, which can be intentional, manifesting, any bit of that, and putting that into a visionary plan. Gemini. Gemini puts the emphasis on baggage the rest of this year. It is about burning what has not been working. And this is more of an emotional side of things. So I always see it as backpacks. So the Gemini has been holding on to a lot of backpacks and accumulating them, throwing them into their closet and saying, I'll get to it when I get to it. This is the time to heal, and healing happens in waves. And sometimes it's a tsunami. And this is what 2020 has brought the Gemini. It's showing you, though, that you've been showing up for everybody and not everybody has been showing up for you. And so it's a get ready to take back your own moments and cleaning out the backpacks. And some of those backpacks aren't yours that you've stored in that closet. You have said, I'll carry those. And you're exhausted, Gem. So the rest of this year is, and really honestly, in the next few weeks, is really about you cleaning out your closet from a symbolic standpoint. Cancer. Cancer has an opportunity to look at contracts this year and commitments. And there's so many growth spurts that are happening. And there's some partnerships that are going to be happening for you too, Cancer. So it could be love. It could be business. It could be that you end up moving or getting a roommate. There's these little growth spurts, and they want you to look at the benefits of everything and give yourself kudos on those little growth spurts, because oftentimes you're very hard on yourself. And if you don't see results immediately, you sometimes go, forget it. I'm frustrated. Just forget it. So it's a lot like exercising. If you just ran 1 mile, you're not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You got to work up to it. So Cancer, you're being told that these growth spurts are really positive for you. And there's some partnerships I really see that's coming up for you too that feels very positive. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean love either. So I'm going back to that. It could be love, but it could be that you find a friend that, you end up hanging out with. It could be a roommate. It could be a business opportunity. My Leos. My Leos are the ones that pretend that they have all their stuff together. And my Leos are the ones that are super sensitive. Might not know it. They're not going to show it, but they are incredibly sensitive. And what they do in their head is very ADD-like. They do these ping pong matches in their head. If I do this, this is what's going to happen. If I don't do this, then this is what's going to happen, or this won't happen, or this will happen, or maybe this will happen, and I don't know if it's going to happen. And so Leos exhaust themselves with this overthinking. So 2020, the rest of the 2020, Leo, it's showing that you're burned out. There's a lot of burnout. And this is a chance for you to make changes, even in this Mercury and retrograde time. It's asking you also to look at long-term goals, but there's a creative edge. So do you want to write a book? I almost said, do you want to build a snowman? I don't know why. Do you want to write another Frozen? Do you want to star on Broadway? Do you want to create your podcast? There's something very creative that they show that this is the time for you to embrace that. Virgos, I love my Virgos. My Virgos are very businesslike. Talk about kind of some abrasiveness with regards to Aries. Aries and Virgos sometimes have this sort of combustible. So for them, it's really time for you to dance and for you to act silly and for you to kind of get out of your head. Libras really yearning for an adventure. Libras are having a tough time in this pandemic. And there's a tug of war with yourself and the world and what you're supposed to be doing. And there's mixed signals. And so this is also a time of healing. This is also a time of healing past loves or past situations with friendships. So it's a good time for you to sit down and write a letter to someone that you're really upset with, that upset you in years past, and to then move forward. Whether you hear from them, whether you send the letter or you just rip it up, whatever you do, it's time for you to also kind of expose your soul instead of holding the grudge. Scorpios like to distract themselves with a ton of different projects, and then they sometimes don't finish all of their projects. They just want to look really busy because they don't want to be seen as lazy. So this year, the next part of the year, slows the Scorps down and lets them become a little bit more myopic, lets them drive further into what they want to do, what they want to pick and choose as what's important instead of just doing this busy work and not accomplishing anything. Sag, the second half of the year for you, Sag, is really honestly releasing grudges. It's learning to trust people again. And most of all, it's about learning how to trust your intuition. So if you've been wanting to take a psychic class or a tarot class or a numerology class, now is the time, Sag, for you to do that because you're very heightened right now. Capricorn, not holding Cap back at all. So you are best served right now to expand but also to ground yourself, push yourself, ground yourself, and cement your foundation. So Cap's like, I got this. We're going for it. So there's a lot of new projects that's going to be coming up with Capricorns. I see it more 2021 than 2020, but there's a lot of opportunity that's coming up for Caps. Aquarians, we kind of talked about the humanitarian side of the Aquarians, but it is the year for them to heal as well. I mean, can you tell that there's a theme of healing? It's a time of healing, but it's also a time of finding your own individuality and instead of what everybody else wants you to be or act. Pisces has had a rough couple of years as well. And the next part of this year for Pisces is going to be a test of your will. It's going to be a reminder to not get caught up in the depression of the stress and to spend more time with family and friends. It's a slowdown. It's much like Scorpio. It's a water sign thing, obviously, that they're telling the water signs it's time for you to just take a break and that you're not being lazy by taking that break and to just spend some time reading a book, going within, taking a hike, doing something that speaks to your soul. I know I'm like running out of time, but I'd love to take a couple questions. And I know that there's a delay. So I'm going to, again, say thank you so much for having me. My website is KristyRobinett.com. I'm on all the social media forums as well. My book is available at any of the bookstores. I am all for people who have small businesses like the small bookstores. So if you want to order, obviously it's available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon and Llewellyn, but please visit your local small business bookstores because they need us. I am actually in like the Clarkston, Milford area of Michigan. So I'm in the Detroit metro area. Thank you guys so much for having me. I could talk for hours with you guys about astrology. So it's so hard to condense it. Tony said, it's interesting about Leos. I'm a Leo. My husband has told me for years I act like I'm ADD. Yeah, now you can tell him that it's just the energy. It's not that you need any medication or that you need help. It's just you overthink. Grace says, can you expand a little on Virgo's aim for the rest of 2020? Just stop being a stick in the mud. You are definitely not a stick in the mud. Virgos are just very pragmatic. And they sometimes are seen as being the serious ones. So it's not that you're a stick in the mud. It's that you see the full picture of everything. So 2020 is telling you to play a little bit more. And it's giving you permission for you to do that. Margaret, I did talk about a bunch of the planets in retrograde. I touched on it real briefly. Emma says she's a fellow Leo with ADD. Thanks for acknowledging. You guys are super sensitive. And I don't say that in because I think sensitivity is a superpower. I really do. And the one thing that I also don't believe is I know a lot of people think that like because they're this astrological sign or that astrological sign that they're the most psychic of all. I think we all have psychic abilities. I think we all have that intuitiveness. And it doesn't matter if you're a Scorpio or whether you're a Capricorn or whether you're a Virgo or what have you. I think we all bring something to this. Thank you guys so much. So Llewellyn is telling me that I need to wrap up. So thank you again so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I believe in you guys.